Well, hello there. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Ron, and I am with CamMastery.com, where you can go to learn more about making great videos with Camtasia. And there it is. It went away for a second. So what I wanted to talk about today, three different things. Of course, most Sundays I get together with you and answer some questions, usually 3 questions. I won't be available next week, just in case you were looking for me. I have a family obligation, so I will be joining them instead. But this week, let's take a look at what we want to cover. First thing we'll talk about are the dots associated with Camtasia animations. Second thing we'll talk about is the mask tool. And the third thing we'll talk about is mobile resolution. So that first question says, wanted to know the difference between the red dots and the white dots in animations. Well, what does that mean? Well, let's head over to Camtasia. Let's take a look here. And here in Camtasia, let's go full screen. We see I have this video, and you see lots of different animations here at the bottom. And just to show you what this does, I'll just click play. This zooms into different parts of a monitor, right? So if I'm thinking about using this for something like a sales tool, if you wanted to show somebody how your software looks, you could show them a screen recording and then zoom to different parts of that screen recording. Okay, so anyway, the question is, what about these red dots and white dots? Okay, well, right now when I look at these, they're all white. Well, what does that mean? Well, let's see what happens if I just click and select this media. So let me zoom in just a little bit down here. And when I click on the media, now I see I have a red dot. Well, what does that mean? What if I move over here? Now the red dot moved. What if I move over here? It moved. What if I do this? Looks like the red dot's moving every time I go to a different place. All right. So what is that red dot telling me? What it's saying is what you're about to change is going to affect this part of the animation. In other words, I have an animation that's going to zoom to one area of the screen. And if I make changes at this point in my timeline, then it will affect that animation and that animation only. So the red dot again is saying this is where the change will be applied. So let's look at that. Let's go back and go full screen here and look down here at the bottom. Like I said, I could go to this particular area. Yeah, maybe I'll be happy. I'll just stay right here, zoom back out. And I say here, I just want to change this scale to 200. So watch me type 200, hit enter. And I don't know if you noticed or not, but when I did, this red dot got big and then got small again. So let me just show you. I'll revert this, I'll undo this, and watch down here at the bottom when I do that. Again, you saw it get large and then small again. So let's do this. I'll zoom in to the bottom. I'm going to make a change once more. I'm going to change this to 200. I'm going to press enter. And there it goes. It says, this is the thing you changed. As opposed to any of these other items, any of these other animations. If I was here and I wanted to make a change, I can, again, change the scale. And it tells me that's where you made the change. Now, I know you don't see me making the change on the scale, but that's really what the red dot is for. Now, there's another part of this that is equally important. And that is, the question talks about white dots and red dots. Plural. So when do we see red dots? Well, those are where we have all the animations selected at once. So let's talk about why we would do that, when we would need to do that. So looking back at our screen, it's possible that I want all of these to change, right? So I'm doing something with all of these. For example, if I look here in the upper right, I see that it's set at 180%. And I say, that might be a little bit more than I want. How about, can I go in here? Let me just create a split here, and I'll create a split here. And maybe all of these that are 180, I want it to be something different. Let's just bump it down to like 150. Okay, and I do that to the first one, and then I go here, and oh, it's 180. All right, well, let me bump this down to 150. Okay, now that one's 150. Now let me go to the next one and bump it down. Right, this would take a really long time, so I'm going to undo both of those, and there we go. So now I'm back to 180. Instead, we can use the Edit All Animations button. And we see that the tooltip here says property changes affect a single, so right now it's affecting a single animation. Let me show you that nice and big so you can read what that tooltip says. Property changes affect a single animation right now, but if I click it, now it shows me here that I'm in Edit All Animations mode, and this says this button toggles Edit All Animations mode all on and off. Now I can make changes in between either single or all the animations. Now, when I enable this, I don't ever check this to say don't show this again. I always want this box to come up as a reminder for me. That's my personal preference. So I'm going to say yes, please enable this thing. Now let me zoom out before I click that. And again, I'm looking up here and I see these red dots. I'll click yes. And now down here at the bottom, all the dots are red in this clip because I chose this clip. If I choose this clip, all the dots are red. If I choose this clip, all the dots are red. So whatever clip I'm working in, I can change every animation when I choose this edit all animations. So now when I go in and I say, let's make all of these 150 and I press enter, now let's look at each of these animations. In fact, I'll zoom in here to the upper right. That might be too far. Let me zoom out a little bit. No, I'll zoom into the upper right. And I'm just going to, let's see here. No, I'm not going to do that on second thought. I'll just show you as I go through here, 150, 150, 150. As I'm scrolling and going through all of these, I don't see my scale changing up here in the upper right. And I'll just show you this again. I'll go back to the beginning and I'll zoom in here to the upper right. And, oh, I'm at 156, probably because I guess it's, or 166. So there we go. Now it's at 150, 150, 150. Oh, the one, I did change that one, didn't I? Okay, so this one that I changed, I'm going to jump that. I'll make that, well, that's kind of interesting. I don't know, that might be a bug, but I know that I did change this one item earlier. And so I think what it did was it changed everything by a certain percentage. All right, so I'm going to undo this and I'm going to come back out and I'm just going to change this 1 to 150. And I'm going to go here to the beginning and change this one to 150. Now they should all be 150 at this point. There we go. And if I were to go back up here and change them all, you want to change this? Yes. And then make them all, let's say 200. Now when I go through here, everything should be 200. And it is. Okay, so that is the difference between the white animations and the white dots and the red dots whenever we're talking about animations. So let's go over to our second question. And our second question is about Camtasia 2020. There's still no mask tool in Camtasia 2020, is there? Well, yeah, there is, but there isn't, but there is. So what do I mean by that? Well, here I'm talking about, first of all, there is a mask tool in Camtasia 2020 for Mac. And I actually want to go over there and show you that. So let me jump over. Let's make sure I get the right view here. Yep. Okay, my Mac went to sleep. So let's get that guy back open again. Make sure he's awake. Hey there, Mac. There you are. All right. And now here in the Mac, if I look here, if I started like in the media, one of the options I have on the left is visual effects. And so what I can do is click visual effects. And here is specifically a mask tool. And I can grab this mask and I can drag it over here. And maybe I want to put this here and I say, I want this oval. Well, maybe I want it a little bigger. So I'll make this, circle a little bigger. Or maybe I want it to be truly an oval and I want it to be, compressed like this or something like that. Now I'll do Command Z to undo those things. The other option I have, if I'm looking here, and let's look over here to the right, I have the option to do oval or rectangle, either one. So then with the rectangle, of course, I can zoom in or out, or I can, make this larger or smaller. And let's see what else here. Just want to check something real quick, make sure you can see everything okay. Good. Okay. So that is the mask tool. So this tool exists inside Camtasia right now for Camtasia for Mac, but Camtasia for Mac only. Now, let me go back over to Camtasia for PC. So the question is, does this tool exist in PC? Nope, unfortunately it does not. However, it does kind of exist if we apply our visual effects, or not our visual effects, but the alpha properties. So let me go over to Camtasia and let me create a new annotation, and I will create a rectangle and apply this here. And I'm going to put this, there we go. Just had to let my son know that I was streaming. He was like, hey, Dad. And I forgot to close the door. So anyway, I'll put this here and I want to apply this as a mask or as a matte. And I can choose alpha. And now I have this off and I can use this as a mask whether, no matter what the shape is. So I could do the same thing here. I can use a star, and I'll put that over here and make this star a matte. And again, I can drag it wherever I want, and then I can see whatever's behind this star or whatever I want to do for that shape. So truly the mask operation exists. It's possible for you to use that inside Camtasia, but there isn't the mask tool like we find in the Camtasia for Mac option. Okay, so let's look at our last question. And this is about the resolution we want to use for mobile devices. So the question is really about thinking when we are creating content, what is the best resolution to produce that content? And what we want to do is make sure that the resolution we're producing is best for the viewer itself. So if you're thinking about a lot of people using mobile, for example, if we know a lot of people will be viewing a video on their cell phone or their mobile phone, then we might want to make things a little easier for them to see. So that's really the heart of this question. So this person is in the process of creating different instructional videos, and so I'm sure that she ran into somebody who was like, hey, I think you should make them 1280 by 720 instead of 1920 by 1080. So let me just talk about a few suggestions that I made. So when you're considering changing those resolutions, first thing you want to consider is I recommend 1920 by 1080 because that's kind of the current standard. Now, you could argue with me on that, but I think for the most part, 1920 by 1080 is where most people are creating their content. And so if you aren't sure what resolution to use, then I would say use 1920 by 1080. Next, the device support. So when we think about displaying this video, can the different screens show this? And the answer is yes. All of the devices that are being created right now are able to display 1920 by 1080 or even better. I mean, even the mobile phones that are most recently being created can show even greater resolutions than those. Next is more area. So you have more pixels that you can display when you have 1920 by 1080. So if you're looking at something like software and you want to show somebody how to use software, my recommendation is to use that 1920 by 1080 to do that. That particular the resolution, you can always zoom in. And so that's my recommendation there is on the 1920 by 1080. When you need to get more detail or there is a smaller area that you need to show, then feel free to zoom into those areas and still produce your video at 1920 by 1080. Now, there are good arguments for the 1280 by 720. So the first thing about that is that things do appear larger on the screen. When we are looking at that screen size, it will just make everything a little bigger. So when we think about people viewing on a smaller device, it's probably easier for them to see when they're using, if we produce at 1280 by 720. The next part is that it's a smaller file. So if we're thinking mobile device users are probably using data, and the faster we can get the data to them, the better. And if it's a 1280 by 720 file, it's just going to be a smaller video, which means less bandwidth, they're consuming less data, and they'll be able to see that video in its entirety faster than if it's a 1920 by 1080 video. And last, you will have less detail, but that might be okay if you're doing something that doesn't require that detail. So when I mentioned 1920 by 1080, I said that would be great for something like software. If you're trying to show different menus and different tools within software, you probably want greater detail there. However, for something like a PowerPoint slide deck, or something like a talking head video, like similar to what I'm doing here, or more like this, if you just have a talking head video and some text that's going to come out on the screen, then you will probably be fine doing a 1280 by 720. The text will be big enough. You don't need that fine detail. So those are some reasons that you might choose the 1280 by 720 over 1920 by 1080. But again, if you're not sure, then go ahead and stick with the 1920 by 1080. Now I'm going to check and see if you have questions. So if you have questions, go ahead and throw those over in the chat if you're joining me here live. And if not, you can always ask questions later. I do come back and check the comments to see what questions are here. As you're doing that, I will remind you that you can go to cammastery.com/store and find Camtasia Mastery, where you can learn this stuff and so much more all about Camtasia. I do have a sale that's running right now. It will run through the end of August. So if you want to get that lower price, make sure you grab it before the end of August, before that price goes up. So that is important for you to know. And like I said, let me jump over now and check and see if there are any questions in the chat. I don't see any questions over there. So it looks like you have all your questions answered, which is wonderful. I hope that this is a great weekend for you. I appreciate you showing up. I appreciate you being here live and asking your questions throughout the week. I'll be happy to answer those. Again, not here next week, but I will be here the following week. So thank you very much again, and I'll see you next time. So long.